Welcome, everybody, to the Justice Then Justice Now podcast, where we talk everything criminal justice system, the entire spectrum. On today's show, we have Sam Weitz. How you doing, Sam?
Very good, sir. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for joining us. My name is Jeff Thomas, and it's the main man is Toby Roche on the Justice Then Justice Now podcast. I'm just helping out, but I'm going to do my best as the curious dummy of the crew to maybe try to translate some of the jargon you guys might be talking for our, lay listeners. But first of all, Sam, where are you from? How'd you grow up? Where are you from? And what was your family like?
Well, originally from Atlantic City, New Jersey, and born and raised there, and basically stayed there until my federal law enforcement career started. Prior to that, though, I became a police officer in the state of New Jersey. First city was Seal City, which was in Cape May County, small community, oceanfront. And then I moved on to Margate City, New Jersey for approximately 6 years before I finally got to be a federal agent that I've always strived to be.
So did you grow up always wanting to be a police officer, or was it something that you learned late?
From there, the federal agent, always. In fact, I never would go out Halloween. I would never or try not to get in trouble. I've always wanted to be a police officer. I remember in high school, people were asking me what I want to be. I said a police officer. And my friends, oh, you need to go into business. You're not going to make any money as a police officer. You're not going to make any money. I wasn't interested in making money. I was interested in being a police officer. In fact, my first job, police officer job in Seal City, paid $7,200 a year. And back then, that was big money for me anyway. And it's an interesting story that I should address just quick, how I became a police officer. The state of New Jersey dropped the age limit to 18. And I applied. I was 19 going on 20. And I took the civil service test. I got selected, passed the test for Camden, Trenton, New Jersey, East Orange. I remember this like it was yesterday. West New York. And I'm going for interviews because I scored high in the test. I'm going for interviews and they keep telling me I'm too young. You have to be 21. I'm like, what do you mean you have to be 21? I took the civil service test. It was 18 and above. In order to carry a firearm, you have to be 21. So I keep getting turned down by these cities. And I finally sought legal advice. And we were ready to go into Superior Court because I kept getting turned down jobs. And I was getting very, very disgusted. So one day I'm talking to my father in front of my house. The people across the street come over. Hey, Sam, how you doing? Haven't seen you. I said, well, I'm not really doing that good, to be honest. I'm trying to become a police officer. And I was in community college at the time for law enforcement. I said, every city I go to, Newark, Camden, West New York, Trenton. I mean, not golden spots for someone to become a police officer. So I said, I've got an interview Monday. I'll never forget. I got an interview Monday in a small city called Seal City in Cape May County. Right away, the wife says, we know the mayor there. And I'm like, yeah, okay, everybody knows somebody. So I said, well, she goes, let me make a phone call. When's your interview? I said, it's Monday. I said, but my problem is I'm too young. I have a lawyer. We're fighting. She goes, well, let me call the mayor. Thank you very much. I go for my interview. I meet the chief. First thing out of his mouth, I've heard so much about you, Sam. When can you start? I said, whoa, wait a second. I'm only 20 years old. I just turned 20. Because, Sam, you come highly recommended. So that's when I learned no matter how much education you have, no matter how much experience you have, it's always good to know somebody that knows somebody. And I became a police officer. And that's how I first started at age 20 in Sea Isle City, New Jersey. But they put me through the mill, and then I left. Like I said, I went to Margate City, and I was there about 6 years. And that's right outside of Atlantic City. And the reason I left Sea Isle City was because I was going into a 4-year college, and it was closer for me to commute back and forth at night while I was working.
Very cool. Uh, Someone told me once, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And I think that was the perfect example of that.
Well, that was a perfect example of that. And then again, I went to
Can I ask
Margate
Chris a
City.
question, Sam? And it's
Sure.
a technical thing for us. I also was hired at 20. Okay, and how did it was 21 to carry a firearm, or had they reduced that to 18 as the department? What was your argument with the chief?
Okay. Well, all the other police departments I mentioned, the larger cities, uh, as soon as I went in, they told me I was too young, and that was federal. Toby, as you probably know, that was a federal law. In order to carry a firearm back then, you had to be 21. But New Jersey, in particular, allowed 18-year-olds to become police officers. So you were caught in a catch-22. You know, sure, I passed the civil service test. I met all the requirements, but unfortunately, you're too young. Sea Isle City cared less. He didn't care if I was 18, 19, 20. He hired me, and the rest is history. And then I went to Margate, and I started to learn a lot about law enforcement, the criminal justice system. Just briefly, and I won't go into it. Uh, Years go by, and they appoint one officer as a sergeant, and myself and just about the entire department went into the chief, and we told him that he's dangerous. I mean, for as you know, Toby, for a police officer to step up about another police officer's personality or work habits, it takes a lot because you're going against a brother. But we all felt that in the best interest of safety to all, because of his attitude, because of his behavior, if you make him a sergeant, and again, I remember this, some things as you, Toby, you remember the rest of your life. We went in, we said, Chief, he's going to kill somebody or kill himself. And the chief at that time said, he's going to be your sergeant, you respect him, and you obey him. Okay, Chief. I worked the 4 to 12 shift on a Saturday night. It was in November of 1975. I went off work at a 11:45. I got a phone call at 4 a.m. This individual who made sergeant just started his first shift at midnight on Sunday morning in November. It was his first shift. I got to be honest, I didn't even congratulate him. He came in, we got briefed on what happened on our shift, and I left. 4 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call. You're not going to believe this. What? He's dead. What? He was chasing a motorcycle, and I don't know if you can see this photo. I'll try. Okay. That was the result of him chasing a motorcycle. He was driving, crashed into a tree, and killed himself. He was only a sergeant for 4 hours. Luckily, his partner, broken hip, broken leg, but he survived. And uh, that was probably the eye opening and beginning of me realizing that you can only do so much. And as a result, he was dead 4 hours after they put the stripes on him.
I just wanted to
That was
ask
pretty
you.
devastating.
What happened to? Go ahead.
uh, no, I was just going to say that, and this will lead me into some other things that I'd like to discuss if I have the time. Uh, I get into the office. I was working at 8 a.m. on Saturdays. We double backed. If you work 4 to 12, you come back 8 o'clock in the morning. So I come in, I guess it was like 6 o'clock in the morning, and we're kind of shocked, you know, sad. And the chief's there. And the chief, God bless him, was very religious and went to church every Sunday. And part of that was had to do church the chief wanted. That's what the chief got on Sunday mornings. So it's about 8:15. The poor officer was just was killed 4 hours ago. And I'm standing around, we have our heads down. And the chief goes to me, Sam, it's 8:30. I said, yes, sir. What? He goes, oh, we got to continue on. You got church traffic. I'm like, chief, the officer's not even deceased 4 hours and you're worried about church traffic? Sam, life has to go on. Anyway, so that's one of my experiences. And I just, but I took that as a learning experience, and I'll get to that again if we have time. The death of a police officer, it's tragic, as we see on TV. It's horrific, as we see on TV. And the next day, or maybe the next hour, life goes on. And that's one of the issues I've had later on in my career with the feds that got me extremely discouraged, to the point where I realized that I in management just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, that's very traumatic. It's the ultimate sacrifice. My question was, they did apprehend the motorcycle operator, and he was fully prosecuted, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Yes, he was.
Some justice on that, for sure.
So as a police officer, I learned a lot. And let me just backtrack real quick, because I took this with me throughout my police career and my federal law enforcement career of over 26 years. There was a sergeant in the police academy. Can I mention his name? He's deceased. Very, very nice gentleman. 6'5", 6'6", about 250 pounds. His name was Bob Clifton. I'll never forget. So he was in charge of the police academy, and the very first day, within a couple hours, he stood up in front of the room and he made a speech that, again, I'll remember, that half of the officers in the room within 20 years will never see their retirement. They're either going to quit or they're going to get killed. I mean, he let us in. He gave us the straight scoop. And he said, the other half, you're going to get by. You're probably going to end up in divorce. He goes, I don't know why any of you guys want to pursue this career, but let me tell you something. What I'm about to teach you here, you better listen and you better learn, or you're going to be dead. And he went on to say, and this goes back to the story with the police officer, the sergeant that was killed. He went on to say that if and when, God forbid, you get killed in the line of duty, everybody's going to be upset. They're going to put the black little band on their badge. The mayor's going to give a little speech about what a great guy you were. The chief of police is going to give a little speech about a great guy you were. They're going to fold up a flag. The mayor might order the flags be lowered for your city. And the next day, you're going to be forgotten about. And that sounds harsh, but it's the reality. Because again, we'll get to it. In my federal career, after I retired, I started doing public speaking, and I had all the statistics on the police officers killed, wounded by illegal aliens. And yet to this day, as you know, it's all public information. A couple of weeks ago, another police officer was killed in another part of the country. A month prior, a police officer was killed. And what has been done about it? Absolutely nothing. And again, that gets to the end of my career when I just realized, as far as I was concerned, as an assistant special agent in charge with Homeland Security, the mission for me was sadly over.
Sam, I got a question, kind of backtracking a little bit. When you were talking about how you went to your superiors and said, "Look, there's trouble on the horizon for the sergeant," was it like personality traits? Was it like not enough training? Like, what gave you that indication? Was it something that could have been taught that would have prevented, him from tragically, dying so soon? Or, are some people cut out for it and some people just not? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
You kind of hit it. Number one, he was not cut out for it. Toby, you and I, we discussed this. We worked with agents that just were not cut out for it. Whether one agent had a very nervous condition, he just got very, very nervous.
He froze.
Management realized that.
He froze, Sam, on the street.
Sorry?
He froze on surveillance, literally with drugs being moved. God, I'm sorry.
And I will say that not only did agents recognize it, but management recognized it. So they put him in the office, and he did office work, and that's fine. I mean, look, not everybody is cut out to be put in positions of life and death and stress, as Toby can account. Many days there is no threat of death. There is no stress. But when there is, there is. I mean, when you're dealing with 3, 4, 5, 6 tons of cocaine, when you're dealing with millions and millions of dollars, when you're dealing with people on the street that you're arresting, that everyone back in the 80s, as Toby can tell you, carried a firearm, it's a lot of stress. So to answer your question, in his particular case, our view was his attitude was horrific towards citizens. He had a badge, and you do what I tell you to do, or I'm going to kick your ass. That was his attitude. You cannot disagree with him. Even when he was a police officer, there'd be confrontations on arresting individuals, how to arrest them, the mannerism when you arrest someone. I can tell you, and again, Toby can, personally, I treated, and I hate to use the word, but I will, every scumbag with as much respect as I would want in return until they didn't show me the respect. I can be the meanest SOB, but I tried to be the most professional. And I got to say, I've been very fortunate in my federal career, as well as police, that I never shot anyone. I don't have all these stories about shootouts. I never had that problem. I always respect people. To go back to the sergeant, he did not respect people. He was arrogant, and I hate to say that. He was obnoxious. I hate to say that. And he was brutal. And when you give someone even more power, you don't have to be a psychologist to know you're adding fuel to the fire. 4 hours later, he was gone.
Yeah, but were there like, and I just want to wrap this up, but I think it's really important that were there traits he had, Sam, when he was a patrol person, that he would be in charge and make bad decisions, or basically not the public view with him, but with the officers, that he'd have to make a split-second decision involving safety or whatever you're doing, and he hesitated or he went overly aggressive to the right, which caused danger for you guys.
Overly, overly aggressive. You nailed it, Toby. I'm sure in your career you've met people like that, and extremely overly aggressive. I don't want to go into great detail, but officers saw him in action. We brought it to the attention of the chief. The chief basically shrugged his shoulders and said he's going to be the sergeant, and that's the end of it. So that was the end of it. Sad. 4 hours later, gone.
So this type of kind of negligence with management, it seems like you were kind of hinting at that it was something you had to deal with your entire career. Would you say it's more or less the higher you go up into like federal agencies and stuff, or is it just like the same but different?
I can talk from experience because my career, I started out and I don't play politics. I never have. I never will. And I speak my mind. And sometimes that's not good. But I always kept true to myself. It took me, 19 years to get promoted. And let me just backtrack. I did the biggest cases, and we'll go through those. I'm not patting myself on the back, but Toby knows because we both worked together. I had big, big international drug money laundering cases. I was selected for internal affairs, which is another story, with the U.S. Customs Service. I fought that big time, trying to get out of going to internal affairs. I got my master's degree in criminal justice. I went to headquarters for a 3-year tour, and I basically, what we called it, punched my ticket. The reason I punched my ticket was because, like everyone else, you hope to go into management. So I got my master's degree. I went to IA. I went to headquarters. I come out of headquarters, I come out of internal affairs. After serving 3 years, I start applying for positions. Nope, I don't get selected. And again, as Toby can tell you, because we were side by side, I keep putting in, I keep getting denied. I can't get past the oral interviews that happen to be with individuals that, for whatever reason, really didn't like me. But it is what it is.
They were envious. They never
finally
done
it reached
cases.
the point, and never done cases. Finally, it reached the point where I said, I've got all this in my background. I've been an excellent agent. It's time to fight this. So again, here we go. I seek out legal opinion, and there's an announcement that comes out for Kalispell, Montana. I don't know if you ever heard of Kalispell, Montana, but they were looking for a resident agent in charge. So I'm saying to myself, who the hell is going to put in for Kalispell, Montana? It's on the northwest border of Montana. And I'm saying to myself at the time, I'm going to put in for it. And when I don't get northwest Montana, I'm going to really nail them to the wall. Well, I put in for northwest Montana. I got promoted. So now I'm telling my wife at the time, unfortunately, she passed away at the time, we're leaving Fort Lauderdale and we're going to northwest Montana, Kalispell. Well, after I picked her up off the floor, we moved out there, and I got promoted, and I had to go because here I am fighting to get promoted. The government can turn around, let's be honest, and say, Sam, we offered you Kalispell, Montana, and you turned it down. So I had to go, and I went. So, Toby, did you want to ask a question, or?
Yeah. Yeah, I know his wife, Karen, and she was a wonderful woman. And I went to the wedding, and Sam, I said, this is the right person for you. And to go from Fort Lauderdale to Snow Country, I know I wouldn't do it. I'm originally from Mass, as you know, but I have very good friends there from the police department, high school, and all that. But to go back, no. And obviously, Sam did the cases. He had to check legitimately checked the boxes: search warrants, arrests, investigations, international, and all this. And unfortunately, there's a group of people that we worked with. I called them the ride-alongs in the book. And what Pete Thron put out was, these are individuals who didn't do the work, but when they put in their promotional papers for experience, they would put like Sam's case down or different things, creating undercover operations, which doesn't happen with a lot of agents, like Title III's, wiretaps. I've never done one, but there were people who worked on wiretaps as surveillance or whatever, and they said that they originated the wiretap. So, Sam had to leave. He had for a promotion, and I had the same thing in my career, and starting with the Marshal Service. So I hope that I've read something now that Homeland Security is going to do more local promotions and internal hiring at we call the special agent in charge level. So I think that may alleviate someone having to leave the beaches of Fort Lauderdale and go to Montana to get a promotion.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So what was the day-to-day like up there in Montana? Are you like like watching, like making sure is there like a border crossing up there or something? Like what was it like?
That's a very good question. Yes, there's two border crossings that go into British Columbia, and we were the first. The FBI had an office, two-man office. We were right down the hall from them. In fact, I built our office, the Homeland Security office. I didn't build it; I remodeled it. It was in an office building. I didn't move into it for 6 months after I got to Montana, but we were the first true law enforcement federal agency that was on the northwest Montana border, other than the FBI, who only did investigations on the Indian reservations. As you may or may not know, the FBI has that oversight of investigations on federal Indian land, and a lot of crime, may or may not know, a lot of crime on Indian reservations that the FBI is very, very busy with. And there were two agents. So this is kind of ironic, but I take my skills that I learned in Miami back in the 80s when I was with DEA. And if I can, and then I'll get to your question, Jeff, if I can, I just want to give you a real quick oversight, because I was recognized in the Southern District of Florida, Miami, and the entire Southern District, West Palm, Fort Lauderdale, over to the West Coast. And I did a case in Baltimore. I was recognized as an expert. And I'm the last one to toot my horn, but I just want to give you a quick overview that I know what I'm talking about. In fact, I have to document when I was doing public speaking everything I say, because some people just, he's just exaggerating. I don't exaggerate. I have no reason to exaggerate. So I took the skills that I learned from Miami drug enforcement to Montana. Sounds crazy, but just a little background real quick. I graduated DEA Basic Academy in 1983. 1985, January, I had 5.5 tons of marijuana seizure. I investigated successfully. Easter Sunday of 1985, I had 800 pounds of cocaine. April 3rd, 1985, I had 32 pounds of pure cocaine seized. April 19th, 1985, 5,100 pounds of marijuana I seized. August 31st, 1985, 1,000 pounds of cocaine. September 16th, 1985, 440 pounds of cocaine. That's a case I did in Santo Domingo, which I can talk for hours on that case. January 24th, 1986, I had 17,000 pounds of marijuana. Uh, that's a case I initiated, made 12 arrests. November 6th, 1997, 3,700 pounds of cocaine that we did a controlled delivery. That means we watched it. We followed the 18 wheelers going to New York. And I'm pretty good doing investigations, as Toby also is excellent, and his career speaks for itself. So I took that knowledge and skill that I learned from Miami to Montana. And you're probably saying, as well as the viewers, wait a second, he's in Northwest Montana. What the hell happens in Northwest Montana with cocaine or marijuana? So I get there, and I was by myself for the first maybe 5, 6 months. And then I was sent two brand new agents from the academy. Don't ask me how they got selected from Montana. But so I'm driving around, and there's one house, and Toby, you can relate to this, in the middle of nowhere in Montana with 8 foot, 10 foot cement walls around it with cameras. Are you picturing this, Toby?
Yeah, and
With,
I want to
with
hear
private
about the
cameras.
firearms inside, because that's definitely something you encountered.
So with the private cameras, surveillance system set up, and I'm looking because they had iron gates, all these fancy cars. I'm saying, wait a second. Okay, I might be in Northwest Montana, but a doper is a doper. I'm sorry, a drug dealer is a drug dealer,
You can say
no matter
doper,
whether you're in
Sam.
Miami or in
Hmm.
Montana. A doper. Okay, so I started doing some background investigation, just generic: who owns the house, how long it's been there, what the owner does for business, and he's a used car salesman. He's a used car salesman, and he brings cars back and forth from Canada, which, I guess you can get about the registration process. But anyway, so I'm saying to myself, wait a second. This guy, he's a used car salesman. He lives like this. So the investigation continues. My two rookie agents come in. I tell them what I want done. Because I was the supervisor, and I want to give them as much experience and much training as possible. And to make a short story long, uh, middle of the night, I get a phone call from one of the ports of entry that they uh, apprehended, discovered a tractor trailer with cars coming into Kalispell, Montana, that was loaded with BC bud, British Columbia bud, marijuana. Well, back then, BC bud was the number one primo marijuana that people throughout the United States wants. So I'm like, okay, so we go up to the port, interview the truck driver. Of course, he knows nothing. He knows nothing. We do the background. Lo and behold, who do you think the truck is registered to? Bingo.
The guy with the nice house.
So eventually, yes. So eventually he flips. We arrest this guy. We seize his house, as you know, Toby, under asset forfeiture, anything related to drugs, transportation of,
Storage.
purchased by, drug money. We seized it. We cleaned him out. I believe he got 7 years. And as a result of that, I then got promoted because it was the largest marijuana seizure in the state of Montana at that time, and probably still is. So I got offered a position in Seattle as the assistant special agent in charge. I had 50 agents. I had 5 group supervisors and 2 technicians that would do wiretaps and cameras. And I thought, I thought I made my career. I thought that I finally got to management with Homeland Security. We now became Homeland Security. And I realized that that was actually my downfall in my federal law enforcement career.
And how did you realize that? What was how soon after you got that promotion did you realize it wasn't what it seemed?
I'm going to say probably within 6 months, I realized that the politics played more into federal law enforcement than I ever thought. Look, let's be honest with one another. We know there's politics in everything. But in law enforcement and criminal justice, in my view, there is no room for politics. Once you put politics into criminal justice or law enforcement, whether it's local, whether it's county, whether it's state, or whether it's federal, it's not going to work. And sure enough, Homeland Security was loaded with politics, especially, again, I'm in Washington State, I'm in Seattle, and I have 50 federal agents, and about 25 of those were assigned to immigration, illegal immigration. And I can talk for hours. I don't need to. If anybody watches the news every day, we see what's going on at the border. We see what's going on with fentanyl. We see what's going on with, and I call them, might not be politically correct, illegal aliens. People that cross our border illegally are illegal aliens. There's a process, as everyone knows. If you want to become a citizen, you go through. But again, I don't need to expand on the current status of our border. Everyone reads it every single day. Everyone reads the horrific crimes committed by illegal aliens. And that's when I first started realizing what sanctuary cities, what sanctuary states are, because I'm in management. I'm responsible for 25 or 30 agents assigned to immigration enforcement, and they handcuffed me, which means I had to handcuff my agents. And it got progressively worse. I had Congress people calling my supervisor. Again, I was the assistant special agent in charge, second in charge. There was a special agent in charge, and then me for the entire state of Washington. I took that very, very seriously. And what would happen would be, and Toby, you can interrupt me anytime. What would happen would be over the months, I'm having breakfast with my wife and we're watching the news, and they talk about an individual with a Spanish surname being arrested for either rape of a child or for an arson or for a homicide. And my wife Karen would look at me and she'd go, "You're going to be busy this morning." I said, "Yep, here we go." So I go into work. The first thing I do is I get a phone call from my special agent in charge on the floor above me. And he goes, "Sam, can you come up?" "Yes, sir." So I go up. He goes, "Did you see the news?" "Yes, sir." "Run a records check and see if we were ever notified about this individual being illegal." So I have my group supervisor run the record check. It's an inch thick of arrests that this individual was involved in, criminal acts that he was involved in, and released. Never charged. We were never notified. And I said to my boss, the special agent in charge, what's going on here?
Was
He
this,
goes,
can
it's
I
not our
interrupt, Sam?
concern.
Was this due to this,
Yes.
the sanctuary city policy of the local police that was in Seattle?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe I should, you think I should touch on what a sanctuary city is? Because when I first started in Seattle, I really didn't even have an understanding of it until I was in management dealing with it. You want me to
Yeah,
backtrack and
let's
just
go to that,
discuss what
but finish, if you don't mind, finish the story on your SAC and what he wanted you to do with this guy's background and
okay.
what the outcome was.
Okay, so I would say, Lee, we need to let these people, the citizens of Seattle and Washington State, know what's going on. Nope, not our job. And then it is our job. So you can see the confrontation was starting between my supervisor and me being second in charge for the state of Washington. So no one says anything. So this individual goes through the court system. The feds never notified, gets sentenced to state prison for whatever crime, and then eventually gets let out because you may or may not know, or the public may or may not know, that sanctuary cities and states do not notify the federal government when an illegal alien is released from prison or jail, period. And you shake your head, you go, wait a second. So what happened to this guy? He served 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever his sentence is, walks out of prison, goes right back to Seattle, lives happily ever after until he commits what? Another crime. And maybe or maybe not, we as feds will be advised, usually not, because sometimes it's a misdemeanor, drunk driving, assault and battery. So his rap sheet, his criminal record keeps growing and growing. And then what happens? He commits another felony. And now all of a sudden people are outraged. How can this happen? And that's when I wanted my management team to back me, go before the press and say, this is why it happens. Because you're in a sanctuary city, you're in a sanctuary state, the federal government never gets involved because we don't get involved. Because management, if you're in a sanctuary city or sanctuary state, don't want to ruffle the feathers of the politicians that authorize these illegal sanctuary policies. They're illegal. There's no such thing as a sanctuary policy regarding immigration. Let me just repeat that. There is no policy or law that clarifies and authorizes sanctuary cities, states, and counties. Usually, a sanctuary county or city, federal or state, it's usually it's a wink. It's not even in writing. It's a wink. It's an understanding between the city mayor, between the city manager, the police chief, the sheriff, the prosecutors, that, hey, we'll just handle this within our little community or within our state. Don't bring in the feds, because we believe that no matter if you're illegal or legal, if you're illegal, you get a different set of rules that you have to abide by and live by, which is none. And I try to explain that when I did my public speaking, and people look at me like, what are you talking about? Well, I have examples, hundreds of examples of illegal aliens not only committing crimes, horrific crimes, but killing police officers, state troopers, and sheriffs. I've done exhaustive research on it. It's all documented. I can go to just, a month ago, ironically, but sadly, a Washington state trooper killed by an illegal alien who had arrest record a mile long, but was protected under quote unquote sanctuary policies. The feds were never notified. And again, when I was doing public speaking, people will look at me, and on my PowerPoint presentation, I had to pull up the slide of the horrific crime, just horrific. And I'm not going to take the time because I can talk for hours. We have the one in San Francisco. The poor girl was shot by an illegal alien at the pier. You probably remember that. There was outrage just a few months ago. Just a few months ago in Atlanta, the girl was jogging, and everybody was on national news and talking about how we have to crack down. And I'm saying to myself, wait a second. Back in 2007, 2008, and 2009, I'm screaming. I'm raising every flag I can. Of course, I was held back because of my position. I had to be very careful because honestly, I didn't want to lose my 26-year pension. So if my boss says, keep your mouth shut, I kept my mouth shut. In fact, it got so bad in Seattle, they had to hire, it was the first time, a public information officer because the special agent in charge couldn't take the heat anymore. The news was calling to find out the background on an individual who was arrested for murder, who was arrested for rape of a little girl, who was arrested for arson. My manager couldn't say, oh, well, we were never notified. He's been arrested 17 times in Seattle and King County, which is the county for Seattle, and we were never notified. No, you can't say that. You can't say that. So the public never knows that, number one, he was an illegal alien, and number two, his arrest record was 17 pages because nobody would ever say anything. And that went on and on and on. So everything went to the public information officer. Of course, she was trained to beat around the subject, spin it, never mention that he was an illegal alien in this country for the past 7 years, in this country, committing crimes that now led to the rape, murder, homicide of why it's now brought to the attention of the public. And again, as a manager, it was getting more frustrating. And there was one case in particular, and again, but there's one case in particular that I have in my presentation where an illegal alien was dating a girl that worked at the college in Seattle, Washington State, I believe it was. And he went into where she works at the college and shot her, killed her. And of course, we get called about it, do the background on him. Well, he was illegal out of Europe. He's been living in the country for years and years. He was an illegal, came in illegally, and he murdered his girlfriend at the time. Well, what we came to find out was 4 hours prior, he was arrested by Seattle police for drunk driving, and they let him go. Now, if it wasn't a sanctuary city and sanctuary policies, we, the feds, would have notified that we apprehended so-and-so. We believe is an illegal alien from Europe, and we would have went and put him in handcuffs and initiated deportation. But we were never notified. You got a death on your hands. And again, ironically and sadly, I gave a presentation. I had about a month, 3 weeks left before I retired, January 1st, 2009. So my supervisor, the special agent in charge, calls me in and says, Sam, I want you to go down and give a speech on immigration to, it was about 150 law enforcement people. And I looked at him, again, one of the stories I'll never forget. I looked at him and says, you want me to go? Because As you can tell, I might be kind of vocal. I says, you want me to go? He says, yeah, go give them a piece of your mind. Okay, you want me to do that? I'll do it. I had 3 weeks left. What are they going to do to me? So I go down, and there's about 150 law enforcement people. There's some people from the public. And I gave a little presentation on the spirit of sanctuary cities and policies and the damage that they're doing to Seattle and the state of Washington. And there was 2 troopers, Washington State troopers, and they had the scrambled eggs, gold on their hats, and they were on the desk. And looking back on it, maybe I should have done this. Maybe I shouldn't have done it. I don't care. So I said to the troopers, I said, let me ask you a question. I said, we've got 2 Washington State troopers here. I said, I've been here over 4 years, and we've never got a call from the Washington State Patrol. I says, you guys, and correct me if I'm wrong, and you know me well enough, I can be a little sarcastic. I try to know the answer before I ask a question. I said, you guys patrol the highways in Washington State 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, correct? That's correct. I said, can you answer me this question? Why is it that off of Interstate 5, going south of Tacoma, there's a military base? If you make the exit and you turn right, you're at the military base. I'm sorry, if you turn left, you're at the military base. You're at the point of no return. You've got to go to the gate. Well, at the gate, you got military police. If you make a right, you go to the McDonald's, you go to Burger King, you go to Kentucky Fried Chicken. Well, what happens is people that can't speak English and can't read English signs, they're coming up to Washington because it's a sanctuary state. They get free license, driver license, they get free health care, they get free this, they get free that. So they were all coming to Washington State, which they still do. And they make a right. And if they can read the signs, they get their fast food. And there's 7, 8 of them in a car. If they make a left, they're at the military base. Well, lo and behold, they pull up to the military base. The military police stops them. Driver's license, no driver's license. Where you from? We from Mexico. They call the feds 2, 3 times a week, and we run down and we pick them up. No problem. And we do what we have to do. Why is it that the Washington State Patrol, in over 4.5 years, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, has never called Homeland Security on the arrest or detention or stop of an illegal alien? Right. You know what his answer was? He mumbled it. He sat down and he mumbled it. Well, we have a policy that we don't interfere with illegal aliens. And somebody in the back yelled, we're sorry, we can't hear you. So he stood up and he says, we have a policy, and I've got that policy in my presentation. We have a policy that we don't interfere with illegal aliens. We basically let them go. And somebody in the back yells, that's stupid. And then somebody else yells, what do you mean? You know what he did? He picked up his hat and he walked out. The one Washington State Patrol officer stayed. He took a little heat, and then I saw it was getting out of control, and I stepped in. I said, well, look, that's their policy. You can't blame the trooper. And that's their policy to this day. And that brings me again to the ironic and sad 3 weeks ago, a month ago, I've lost track, to be honest. Washington State trooper shot and killed by an illegal alien. Maybe, again, I don't know. I mean, I'm an expert in some areas of law enforcement and criminal justice, but maybe someone at the Washington State Patrol should say, let's look at our illegal sanctuary policies, and maybe we should arrest or detain or notify the feds. But what happened? Nothing. The policy to this day is put blinders on. And I gave the example that if you're a U.S. citizen and you get stopped without a driver's license, you can bet your butt You're going to be pulled in. You're going to be given a summons. They're going to run a criminal record check on you. If you're an illegal alien in the state of Washington, have a good day, sir. Drive careful. Sounds unbelievable. Sounds like, come on, Sam. No, Sam's telling exactly the truth. Whether you commit arson, whether you commit a murder, whether you rape of a child, theft, larceny, you name it. If you're an illegal alien in the state of Washington, in the city of Seattle, in the county of King, hands off, bye-bye.
Sam, I'm like, for a lay person like me, and I try not to watch too much news because it bums me out, but you have obviously a lot of experience with this. In your perspective and your experience, like, when did this start? Obviously, it was happening 15 years ago, but when did it start? And who is everyone? Was it one place and everyone's following, or was it like a nationwide thing? Like, where and when can we trace this craziness back to?
Can I jump in, Jeff, for
Absolutely.
a minute with this?
Yeah.
Sam, if you remember that I was transferred out of the asset forfeiture group over to what we called 79th Street, which was where the immigration investigations occurred. And they transferred me because the excuse was, oh, he's an ex-marshal, deputy marshal. He knows fugitives and he knows how to do this. So when I went over, we had a bunch of, let's say, agents that were there that didn't want to be there. But we all banded together and we went through the warrants, and I was amazed that people from the 80s and 90s, I mean, the height of Miami with the cocaine cowboys, with Escobar and all that, plus the locals, the local hit gangs and stuff like that, if they were illegal, first of all, if there was a detainer from another law enforcement agency like DEA, Broward sheriffs, they would get step back meaning cuffed and taken to that jurisdiction. But immigration never picked them up. There was there were piles of warrants. So we went through them and we started making arrests. We would go out at the last known addresses. We were starting to get the technology through the internet, and we were able to find where they were. So this is like almost 20 years later, these people had been roaming the streets of Miami, and we started making arrests and that.
So these policies in certain places were in place even in the 80s?
Yeah. There was some, well, no, it was just a lot of negligence.
Gotcha.
There was no policy,
Gotcha.
But nobody thought, hey, let's call immigration and do this. So
when did the policy start? Like, we got to be able to nail that down to someone.
It's a good question.
Something.
Jeff, let me, if I can, just to what Toby said, and then I want to add something. We used to, when I say we, Homeland Security in Seattle, my agents would go into the county jails, would go into the state jail and review the records of inmates to identify those that are illegal. So when they get released, at least we know, the feds know, that they're going to be released because of our own investigation. The state, the county, and the city corrections, believe it or not, forbid federal agents to go into their quote unquote jails to ascertain that information. Now, you're saying, any person listening to this is saying, wait a second, this guy's telling me that the federal government, federal agents cannot go into jails and review the records and to identify illegal aliens? Yes. Let me make it clear. Yes. That's what I'm telling you then, and that's what I'm telling you now. Now, to answer your question just briefly, if I can, I just want to highlight one or two things about sanctuary cities and policies, because when, again, I was given my public speaking, the first question I ask is, who knows what a sanctuary city, state, county policy is? And again, believe it or not, some people would raise their hand and talk about religion. It has to do with churches. Has to do with when people are released from prison. They go live in a sanctuary to get like a halfway house. So they had no clue. So I give a little background, and I'll just go through one or two things. Uh, Generally, sanctuary policies instruct city employees not to notify the federal government of the presence of illegal aliens living in their communities. A formal sanctuary policy is a written policy that Seattle, Martin County, and the state of Washington has, may have been passed by a local government body in the form of a resolution, ordinance, or administrative action, general or special orders, or department policies. Most of them are department policies. When you see a sheriff up on TV talking about the immigration and talking about this, talking about that, the first thing I want to know is, do you believe in sanctuary policies? In Seattle, 99% of them might not believe in it, but that's the policy. Now, for me, I can never be a sheriff knowing that I'm handcuffing my officers from doing their job to protect the people of that community. However, some sheriffs, many sheriffs, care less. They get a paycheck. Hey, city manager, mayor, you don't want me to do anything with illegal aliens that commit crimes, i.e., call the feds? I won't call the feds. Uh, Formal sanctuary cities are the easiest to identify because they put their sanctuary policies in writing, which become subject to public records requests. That's how I found all these out. Not because I was a federal agent, because I did a Freedom of Information Act to get their policy. And they're proud of it. The state of Washington is proud of it. The city of Seattle is proud of it. King County, Washington is proud of it. An informal sanctuary policy is a policy that does not exist on paper. And this is where I mentioned prior about the little wink of an eye, but nonetheless is carried out by government workers, administrative service, or safety. An informal sanctuary policy is more difficult to document since no public record exists. Again, it's a little wink of the eye. The mayor tells the chief tells the sergeant tells his officers. There's no policy. There's nothing you can put your hand on. But there's this understanding that we don't do anything with, again, illegal aliens, even if they commit crime. Just process them, let them go to court. They either get fined, they'll get maybe county jail time if it's less than 365 days. They might go to state prison. They come out and they live happily ever after. Sanctuary policies, officials or otherwise, result in safe havens for illegal aliens and potential terrorists. And I'm going to get to that before we end. And this goes back to, bear with me, to 1996. Sanctuary policies allow criminal aliens to avoid deportation simply because they prevent local police from reporting alien criminals to ICE. I mean, it's pretty clear. It's pretty direct. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, if you're an illegal alien in a sanctuary city, whether it's a written policy, whether it's a wink of an eye, you're protected. You're protected by any kind of court action or federal action to get you arrested and, out of the country. And that's why we have the problem today. Now, if I can, just one thing. So I retired in January 2009, and that's what I was up against. And I authorized a worksite enforcement investigation. Toby, I'm sure you're familiar with that. Perhaps the public is not. But Toby, I don't recall. I left in 2009. Do you recall any worksite
In Miami?
enforcement actions since 2009? Anywhere.
No. And right after I retired in 2006, they started doing those kind of policies. And the HSI office.
I'm going to tell you why.
Go ahead.
I'm going to tell you why. You're exactly right. Again, all documented. In fact, in my website, I have a website, iceunderfire.com. In my website, I have a congressman back in 2009 or 2008, had to be 2008. It's the video of him, the congressman, testifying before the Homeland Security Committee that he just learned that in Washington State, Seattle, there were illegal aliens arrested at a work site enforcement, all illegal, and headquarters is opening an investigation on the agents that arrested the illegal aliens. Now, and this is one of the reasons I retired. So I get called in because the Congresswomen in Seattle was calling my boss demanding an explanation of why I authorized, and it was me, proudly, for my agents to go to this work site. And we did all the investigation. We knew it. The one thing about the feds, when we investigate you, we know when you go to the bathroom, when you go to sleep, we know everything. We don't go in blind, unfortunately, like a police officer doesn't know what he's gonna confront. We have a good idea. So we arrested the 25 illegal aliens. I'm kind of, no one got hurt, went very well, no problem. Next thing I'm getting called in, why did I do what I did? Why did I authorize it? And again, I had the final say because I was management. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We arrested 25 illegals out of the business. And well, I'm getting my supervisor, the manager, I'm getting phone calls from the Congress people. They want to know why you did this because at the time it was President Obama. He ordered no work site enforcement operations. They were to cease. I didn't know that. I'm doing my job. The next thing I know, quote unquote, they're sending the flying squad, which is a commonly known phrase for the feds, their headquarters internal affairs agents. They're flying them in from Washington, D.C. to investigate me why I violated a presidential order of not doing any worksite enforcements. Hard to believe. But again, all documented by this congressman who openly he discusses it. Well, that was me. So that's when I realized 26 years, federal service, pension, they're coming after me. What do you do? Some people would say, I'd fight. I've been fighting the last, 6 years, 7 years, fighting the immigration battle. And I didn't have any more fight. I admit it. I had no more fight. So now, if we can, I retired 2009. Let's look where we're at now with immigration, because it's all this talk. I kind of get a kick out of when I turn on the TV and everyone's at the desk with their hands folded and they all have their tie on and they're very trim and proper. Half of them never even met an illegal alien. The other half don't even really know what a sanctuary city or a sanctuary policy is, but they're experts. And I sit there and I just get so frustrated and aggravated because of the lives that are being lost. And for instance, let's just talk about current migrants from China. This is as of a week ago. Fiscal year 2024. Okay, that goes from October to October. So from October to March 2024, 41,970. Fiscal year 23, 52,700. Fiscal year 2022, 27,000, 21, 23,000. Customs Border Patrol is estimating that there's over 10 million illegal aliens currently in the United States. I was only in Seattle. I was only in Washington State. We now have 10 million plus, according to Customs and Border Patrol. Known gotaways, according to Customs and Border Patrol. For fiscal year 2024, again, October to May 8th, just a few days ago, May 8th, approximately 175,000 gotaways, ones that Customs and Border Patrol don't even know about. They know about the 10 million plus, but those 10 million plus, never a background investigation. They don't even know if their real name is what it is. And just one other thing that kind of upsets me, it shows you how law enforcement kind of buys into this. I never bought into the political game, but it's obvious to me, and I might be wrong, but I'll make the assumption and I'll make the assertion that Customs and Border Patrol is now in bed with the politicians. Why do I say that? Clearly, you watch TV, they show the president of the Border Patrol Union on TV. He talks about all the statistics that I just gave you. And what does he say? We need more agents. We need more agents. No, he needs more agents for his union. That's what he needs. He doesn't need more agents on the front line. You've got all the agents on the front line you need. Take the handcuffs off of them. Put them on the front line. Give them the authority to enforce federal immigration laws. Stop having the agents hand out the bologna sandwiches and the bottles of water and taking them on a bus to an airport, putting them on a plane, sending them to all these different cities for them to just roam loose. You don't need more agents. You need enforcement policies. Take the handcuffs off the current agents you got on the border. But no, what do they complain about? We need more agents. We need more agents. More agents to do what? You're not allowed to do anything. But yet, I'm the bad guy because I don't go along with hiring more agents, hiring more people to support the mission. There is no immigration every day on the news. And as a prediction, unfortunately, I think one day we're going to wake up and out of those 10 million plus that Customs and Border Patrol has no knowledge about, there's going to be a terroristic attack. I know you can't say that because we've got Homeland Security, we've got the FBI, we've got the CIA, we've got all kinds of agencies going to ensure that it's not going to happen. I hope they're right. Again, Jeff, that's a very good question. I get asked that when I did give my presentations. And I'll tell you, in my view, where we go from here is holding people responsible. Recently, I've seen cases where families are going after the sheriff, going after the mayor in reference to these sanctuary city policies, because the word is slowly getting out about these horrific policies. You know what really upsets me, and I know it sounds silly, but when I see on a police car or a sheriff's car or a state trooper's car, protect and serve. You tell me, or anyone tell me, how a sheriff or anyone in management and law enforcement can allow a known criminal, illegal alien that's committed prior horrific crimes to walk out. You tell me how that can happen. Someone needs to be responsible. Sue the sheriff, sue the mayor, bring up these public information documents describing what a sanctuary city policy is, the hands off, and let them justify, as I'm raising the question, how can this happen? Like you said, Jeff, how can this happen? It's going to stop when all of a sudden the sheriff goes, holy smokes, they're suing me for 2.3 million. Holy smokes, the chief of police gets called in. The police officer gets called in. Why'd you let this guy go? Well, we have a sanctuary city policy. What? You knew he has a rap sheet because you can easily run it. You knew he has a criminal history. And the next day he goes out and murders this person. You don't think he's responsible? I do. And that's how I think you're going to see it turn around. Other than that, politics, especially at the federal level, as high as the president level, Congress, the Senate, they know about sanctuary cities. They know about sanctuary policies. And one other thing, the federal government gives Homeland Security grants to all these cities. Explain to me, please, if you can. I'll ask you the question because I have no answer. How can the federal government give federal funds for Homeland Security enforcement, knowing that city, county, and state is a sanctuary county, city, or state, give them billions of dollars to enforce Homeland Security federal rules when they don't do it? Cut the funding. It's real simple. You're a sanctuary state, Washington. You're a sanctuary state, New Jersey. You're a sanctuary state, California. You know that $13.2 billion we're going to give you for Homeland Security enforcement? It's canceled. Watch how quick it turns around. But until that happens, Jeff, Toby, I have no answer. And that's why, again, sadly, I left because I didn't have an answer to give to my agents, and I'm not going to handcuff my agents. They're looking at me. They're doing their background. Gang members. We arrested 52 gang members. Toby, you know, the MS-13s, the SIRS, bad of the bad, badasses, all tatted up. We arrested 52 of them, I believe. Could have been 50. Again, I got called in because they wanted to know the rap sheet, the criminal history of all of them. Well, again, don't hold me to the exact number. Maybe 30 of them were badasses. Prior rap sheets, badasses. The bad of the bad. They'll cut you up by looking at you. The other 20 called them, what was the phrase we used? Not come-alongs. There was a phrase we used. They were in the apartment or they were in the house. Well, they were illegal. So we put handcuffs on them, right? They're illegals. They're not gang members, but they're associated with gang members, but they were not, in all honesty, identified as gang members, but they were illegal. We arrested everybody. I get called in. I get my ass chewed for making the arrest because they were not, quote unquote, gang members. They were only illegals hanging out in gang member houses or apartments. And my manager had to go on a Spanish, right. But my manager, again, hard to believe, it's all documented. My manager had to go on the Spanish radio station in Seattle with the chief of police from Seattle. And that's another story, Gil Karakowski, which can talk forever on him. He went with the chief of police in Seattle on the Spanish radio station to what? Apologize for what his agents did and what the police officers assisted the federal agents in doing. Hard to believe. Real quick about Gil Karakowski, since I'm on a roll. I think, Toby, you know the fine gentleman?
Yeah, I know Gil. He was not personally, but he was an officer in St. Pete. Started out in St. Pete, Florida. Well, you know his background, Sam. So he rose quickly.
So
drug czar.
Gil Karakowski was the chief of police in Seattle when I got there. My first mission was, Sam, go over, introduce yourself, because I was on the law enforcement end of it. Go over, introduce yourself, let them know that whatever we can do to help them, blah, blah, blah. So over, I met the manager. We had a nice conversation, and I told them, look, I've got a lot of experience. Seattle is a beautiful city. I don't want to see anything happen to it. We're here to help you. The federal government's here to help you. And in this case, we seriously were. I had 50 agents. We were ready to do whatever we had to do. And we shake hands. 2 days later is when the chief puts out this memo: do not cooperate with the feds. Anyway, so Gil Karakowski gets promoted to the drug czar, federal drug czar, by President Obama, which is great, And he leaves city of Seattle, and I'm saying to myself, well, he's gone, so hopefully the next chief will, adjust, change some of these policies. Of course, he didn't, because city management didn't allow him to, so he didn't. No problem. I'll do what I got to do to get by. So Gil Karakowski's gone, drug czar, God bless him. That's the end of the story. All of a sudden, he becomes appointed director of Customs and Border Patrol under President Obama. Wait a second. Now, let me just backtrack. This is the individual who was chief of police in the city of Seattle that forbid his officers to cooperate with the federal government in federal law enforcement. Now you put him in charge of Customs and Border Patrol for the entire country? What policies do you think he incorporated? And that's why the Border Patrol Union did an announcement where they refused to back him. They wanted his recall, and I've got all those documents, because his policy was hands off of illegals. Well, wait a second. What does Customs and Border Patrol do? They arrest and apprehend illegal criminal aliens. Your boss is telling you, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Just lay low. So again, Jeff, to answer your question, I have no answer. I got the expertise, but no one wants to hear what needs to be done. You need to do away with sanctuary policies. In order to do away with sanctuary policies, hit either individuals in the pocket or hit the state, county, cities in their pocket. Fund them from Homeland Security. Then you might see something. Other than that, it's all talk.
So real quick, do you know off the top of your head if there's ever been like a successful, civil trial from a victim of one of these crimes to, either an officer or a chief or a politician, like to date?
No, I don't. And that's another excellent question. I know, and again, this goes back a couple of years, that poor girl that was shot, she was with her father in San Francisco. It was an illegal. He had a gun, and he went to trial in San Francisco, and he was found not guilty because he accidentally pulled the trigger and shot her in the head. And then he was subsequently deported. But I don't know whether that family did anything. The one in Atlanta, I seriously considered reaching out to the attorney and express my views. Months ago, there was an outcry. Jeff, in my presentation, I go back to 2009, before, of horrific murder, homicide cases that are equal to or worse than the Atlanta one. A poor lady walking her daughter from ballet class, comes out of the ballet school, both get by a illegal alien drunk driver, both killed. I can go police officers killed. I got a video of a police officer pulling over a car, and the illegals, first thing they do is jump out and start shooting at the trooper. Luckily, he survived, but it was all on video camera. And it goes on and on and on until tomorrow, until next week. There's going to be another horrific, if the word gets out that it was Usually it's covered up. I go into great detail, and again, we don't have the time. I go into great detail where I would contact news stations or newspapers because they put in, for instance, and I'm just using a name, Jose Gonzalez Rodriguez. So they talk about his criminal history, they talk about the murder he did, but there's no status as far as his uh, alien status. And I was just curious. I mean, it's should be public information. I like to know, if a Russian commits a crime in the United States, a Russian citizen. If somebody from New York commits a crime in Florida, a New York citizen traveled to Florida. I just want to know where this gentleman's from. Jeff, I've got it all, and Toby, I've got it all documented. You know what response I get back from either the news station or the reporter that reported the story? Oh, we're not interested in that. We're not interested in that. You want to know why? Because 99% of them are from sanctuary cities, counties, and states. And their editors tell them, shh, don't worry about he was a Mexican or a Guatemalan or whatever. Don't worry about that. Just report the story and let it go away until the next one. And that's what you're facing. That's what you're facing. Fortunately, Florida, we don't have that issue. The governor doesn't allow it. There is no sanctuary, to my knowledge. Toby, you might know. There is no sanctuary policies written or a wink of the eye. You commit a crime in the state of Florida, no matter who you are, you're going to go through the criminal justice system. And if you're not here in the country legally, you will be prosecuted by the feds. Period. Period. But yet I can talk about Washington. I can talk about Washington State. I can talk about California. Don't even get me going with Oregon, because some of my responsibility was in Portland. I served in Portland for a couple of weeks when the special agent in charge was out. I know all about Portland. I know all about California. Texas, you got Austin. Texas doesn't tolerate sanctuary cities, state, counties, except Austin. Austin doesn't. The governor do anything about it? I don't know. But Austin is a big sanctuary city policy. New York, huge. And that's why New York has the problems they have. I don't live in New York. I wish New York citizens the best. But when a horrific crime is committed, I kind of, feel bad, have a sip of coffee, and my life goes on, because I realize there's nothing I can do. And that's the saddest part of ending an over 32-year career, that I realized I couldn't do anything. I just, individually, I couldn't do it. And to this day, it's obviously, you can tell, I think, that it still bothers me, because I don't want to see anybody killed. I don't want to see anybody killed by a drunk driver who doesn't have a license, who's been in this country for 7 years, who's committed 15, 16, 17 crimes, who has gone to a state prison in a state and released, then gets behind the wheel with no driver's license, drunk, and kills a family. Yeah, it pisses me off.
And this is why when Jeff and I came up with this concept of doing this kind of show, you watch the media, I don't care if you're watching CNN or you're watching Fox News, MSNBC, whatever, the alphabet. The experts are not people like you, people who've experienced the full spectrum. And your career's been tremendous. You've contributed to everything in law enforcement to protect and serve of our citizens. But it's good to have this on, because I was frustrated watching these so-called experts that are on there in criminal justice and law enforcement, and really, they don't have the experience. A lot of them were political appointments. They came along with the right time to be appointed. And I think the public is tired of seeing these kind of people on. They want to see the agents, the police officers, the inmates, the advocates, the lawyers, the prosecutors, all of that. And sure, there's a lot of nostalgia in the 80s and 90s, but you brought it up to date. There's issues now that are relevant, that need to be solved with the sanctuary city, not just lining up Border Patrol agents along the border, but basically to get them to be able to do their job again. And I want to thank you, Sam, for coming out on this. And I'm proud to have you a friend for over 33 years or so. 33 years. And I enjoy.
It's been a while, but Toby, I just want to add, just because it's in my nature. I don't know if you even know. I traveled to Krakow, Poland, and I went to the Holocaust. I went to Auschwitz. I spent 14, 15 hours, the toughest part of my life. Why did I go? Because even back then, and now it's magnified, but even back then, there's the people that say, oh, that never happened. This didn't happen. That didn't happen. I wanted to go see it myself, and I did. Okay. I lived and I saw what transpired in Auschwitz. Okay. I lived and I experienced illegal aliens, what they're doing to this country, what they're doing to American families. No one can take that away from me. Someone can criticize me. Oh, I don't know what I'm talking about. I do know what I'm talking about. If I say something about the Nazis and about Auschwitz, I can now say to them, have you ever been there? And I'll bet you 100%, no, I've never been there, but I read about it. Well, I've been there. I experienced it the same way I experienced the status of what's going on with the crime in this country. And again, I'll leave you with this. Someday, sadly, we're going to look back on this. We're going to look back on other things I've said. If there's a terrorist attack, this country is going to be really, really hurting. And I hate to end that way, but it's the way I feel. The facts, the circumstances dictate that's coming.
Okay. I hope you're wrong, but it seems that the direction of where we're going with that situation,
when you,
we need to watch
Toby,
ourselves.
when you get 41,000 year to date of migrants from China that we have no idea their true background, they don't even give their real names. 41,970 from China. If you think China is our friend, well then I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. So that's where we're at. That's my view. I wish I had a better story to tell, but I'm telling the facts, the circumstances, and where we're headed, sadly.
No, appreciate it. I think the viewers will appreciate your point of view. And it's been my honor and privilege, and I know Jeff feels the same way, to have you come forth with your stories and your opinions and all that. And I'll be seeing you. I'll be seeing you soon. Sam works as an inspector.
Hey, Toby, do I have a quick second to tell probably a good story?
Sure.
Or a very interesting story?
Yeah,
Yes.
let's end on
Let's end on that. Yeah.
semi.
Yeah,
happy
let's
note.
end on a good note. So
Good.
November 26th, 2008, my agents come into me and go, hey, we've got a CI that somebody's selling Hitler's bookmark. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? So we do some investigating, and sure enough, his longtime mistress, Eva Braun, gave Hitler an 18-karat gold bookmark, and on it, it wrote, "My Adolf, don't worry, only an inconvenience that will not break your certainty of victory. My love for you will be eternal, as our will be 1943." So, like I said, we do some research on this, and sure enough, it was stolen from an auction gallery in Madrid about 6 years prior. So I authorized my agents to get the front money. They wanted $100,000 for it. So we meet him, my agents meet him at Starbucks. Sure enough, the guy presents this gold bookmark that was used by Hitler. And anyway, we recovered it, arrested the subject who stole it or who was involved in the theft, and we returned it back to Madrid. And of course, they were thrilled to death. But I actually held in my hands something that Hitler held in his hands, and it goes to show you the work that we did back then. Not with immigration, but as you know, Toby, drugs, child pornography, uh, 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 what's the word I'm looking for? Trademark violations, currency violations. Unfortunately, we don't hear anything about those anymore. All we hear about is the border. And I don't know who's actually doing these other types of investigations, but I mean, not too many people can say they actually held something that Hitler had in his possession. Kind of interesting, and I got pictures of it. And anyway, so that's we did good on that.
Not only
knew.
held, but that must have been one of his like prized possessions come as a gift from Ava. You know, like that's.
I'll tell you, Jeff. I don't get too emotional over things, but when I held that, it was powerful. It was only a bookmark. It was a gold bookmark with that writing inscribed on it. But to hold something that animal possessed, it was to this day, it was an overwhelming experience. And again, it was just a bookmark, but it had so much more meaning than just a bookmark.
Exactly. The meaning of evil.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks, bro.
And I know we've got like a lot more we can discuss. So maybe in the future, especially if we've got some more Sanctuary City stuff pop up, we can get you back on.
I appreciate it.
And if anyone has any questions for Sam, maybe if we get a bunch, we'll have you back on and have you answer some stuff.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. I look forward to hearing all the other presenters. Thank you guys very, very much.
Thanks, Sam. Take care.
Take care, buddy.